Today, it's finally time to start showing you a little bit of what you can expect in Doctor Who Commander. Cards, art, deck themes, some other goodies as well. Hop into your TARDIS and get ready to travel to the future because it's time for Doctor Who. Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and I'm so excited to finally be able to talk about this collaboration. We've been working on this project for years, and teaming up with the BBC on this was truly a dream come true. Me and my team were tasked with making 4 commander decks. From there, a blank slate of possibilities. All of time and space, everything that's ever happened or ever will. Where did we want to start? The first thing we needed to figure out was how to divide up the decks. With other releases, like Warhammer 40,000, we did it by factions. That was straightforward. With The Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, we did it a little more by type grouping. Hobbits, humans, elves, and the forces of evil, but still a bit more natural. With Doctor Who, we started with a similar approach. For example, what if we did a deck for the Daleks, a deck for the Masters, a deck for the Doctors, and a deck for the Companions? But nothing there felt quite right. Shouldn't the Doctors and Companions be together? It didn't feel like any way a fan of the show would really split them. So we thought about it. How do Doctor Who fans define themselves? And it all clicked into place when we realized the big question, the question that all Doctor Who fans ask one another. Who's your Doctor? Fans of Doctor Who identify by when they started watching and who their Doctor was. Some might say they started with the 4th, others might say they started with the 10th, but that will always be their Doctor. So we decided to divide up the decks by era. Here's how it breaks down. There's the Blast from the Past deck, which features the 1st Doctor all the way up to the 8th Doctor. You'll find them, many of their companions, items, story moments, and so on. I'll note that while this product does not cover the 1996 Doctor Who movie, Paul McGann's The 8th Doctor is still represented from the mini-episode, The Night of the Doctor. There's Timey-Wimey, which is our deck from the 2005 relaunch of the show that started with the 9th Doctor. You'll find the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctors here, plus mini moments from their run of the show. There's Paradox Power, which focuses on the 12th and 13th Doctors and their adventures. So if you're a fan of the newest stuff, this is where you will find it. If you're wondering where the 14th and 15th Doctors are, we do have a plan for them. I just can't quite talk about it just yet. So stay tuned. And last, but don't call them least, we have Masters of Evil. This deck is full of villains from all across Doctor Who history. Many you would expect, and some deep cuts too. And to top it all off, we have the return of Plane Chase. It made so much sense here. In fact, I pitched it before we even started working on the decks, and everyone just thought it was a perfect fit. In Doctor Who, you travel all of space and time, and while playing these decks, it'll feel like you're doing just that. In fact, our largest mantra for designing these decks became build your own episode. I remember in our very first playtest, we had Rose Tyler about to be converted into a Cyberman, but then was saved just in the nick of time by a dinosaur and the 7th Doctor. A story which certainly never happened, but certainly sounds like something you could imagine happening in the show. And every time you play these decks, I hope you walk away feeling like you just watched your own little episode of Doctor Who. There's a ton of Doctor Who to cover. And while not everything ever in the show could make it in, and we had to make some really tough decisions, we really tried to jam in as much Doctor Who goodness as we could, with 50 new cards per deck and all new artwork on all the cards. Now, our main reveals for these decks will take place next weekend at MagicCon Barcelona. Be sure to stay tuned to social media for tons of previews and more details. But how about a few early previews? Let's go deck by deck, and I'll reveal the theme of each deck and a bit more. Let's start where so few Doctor Who episodes actually start, the beginning, with Blast from the Past, the deck for the classic show. The face character here is the 4th Doctor, who is blue and green. Now, the way these decks are built is that every Doctor in these decks is 2 colors, and every companion in these decks is a single color, and you can play them together. How so? Well, very early on, we realized that having Doctors and Companions show up together was crucial. Companions are often just as loved as the Doctors themselves. So all the Companions have the ability Doctor's Companion. You'll see it on the screen right here. This is a variant on our Partner ability. You can have any creature that is exactly a Time Lord Doctor and a companion as your commanders together. This lets you put together your favorite pairing. The 4th Doctor here is blue-green and pairs with Sarah Jane Smith, who is mono-white, but you can mix and match however you want. For example, Rose Tyler in the Timey-Wimey deck is mono-white too, so if you want to ultimately build a deck with the 4th Doctor and Rose Tyler, let me tell you, it'll be a strange mechanical pairing, but hey, go for it. Create your own episode. You might be wondering, who counts as a companion in this set? Well, our dividing line was that they need to be someone who stays with the Doctor and travels with them for a long time, as opposed to popping in and out. I'll let you all speculate as to who that puts where. Okay, now the theme of this deck. This deck is about the past in so many ways. For one, it's about the earliest era of Doctor Who. For two, there were tons of trips back to the past in the early series and history being uncovered. In fact, some fans call them historicals. Wait, historicals? Historic? Yes, indeed, this is a white, blue, green historic focus deck. It's a perfect fit given all the legendary creatures, the mini gadgets, and more we wanted to fit into this deck. There's even 8 sagas in the deck, 1 per Doctor, each representing a story, but more on that later. Now, there's one blue box in Doctor Who that is certainly historic. It's perhaps the most iconic visual in the whole show, and I think it's time to finally show you the first ever preview card from the Doctor Who Commander decks, the TARDIS itself. Materialized TARDIS. It's 2 mana for a 2/4 vehicle with flying, because of course the TARDIS flies too. Now, technically anybody can crew it. We've seen companions try their best before, but as long as you've got a Time Lord around, when it attacks, your next spell gains Cascade. So you'll flip cards from your deck until you hit an extra spell that you get to cast. It reminds me a lot of what going into the Time Vortex looks like, so that's pretty cool. That card is already plenty strong, but if you're playing Plane Chase, as a nice little bonus, you also get to Planeswalk, of course, and end up at the next destination in space or time, wherever that might be. Pretty cool, right? The TARDIS shows up in all 3 of the Doctor decks. And yes, lore fans, I know the Master has had a TARDIS too, but don't worry, there's plenty of other dastardly stuff in the Villains deck for the Master to use. Speaking of Plane Chase and Planeswalking, every deck gets 10 brand new oversized Plane Chase cards. I showed you the TARDIS, so how about I show you another TARDIS themed card? Here's TARDIS Bay. Long ago on Gallifrey, the Doctor stole their TARDIS and ran off to see the universe. And now you can do that too. This gives the spell each turn Cascade. Hey, just like the TARDIS. And then, every now and then, when chaos ensues, you get to steal an artifact and run away, just like the Doctor did with the TARDIS all that time ago. Next, I'm going to show you a token, and it's of something special that really shows you the breadth of this product. One thing about classic Doctor Who is that the team had to be super creative in making aliens and robots with the resources available. So one thing I was really excited about doing with the classic Doctor deck was taking some aliens from the classic show and letting our artists reimagine them at their full potential. Now, if you're not familiar with the 1965 First Doctor serial, The Web Planet, he and his companions encounter these insect creatures, the Monoptera. Now, given the resources of the time, they look like humans in butterfly suits. But here, our artists are able to fully realize that initial vision. Here's a green and white alien insect token produced by this deck that is a Monoptera. Now, you'll have to wait and see exactly how it's created, but it really highlights the breadth to me of what you can expect out of these decks. Okay. Now I want to do something really fun. I want to show you some art for cards. You'll see some of these cards next week in Barcelona too. All of these art pieces are for brand new cards, not reprints. Ready? Okay, up first, how about the First Doctor himself? Here he is with his TARDIS console, just about to head off somewhere new. The First Doctor, by the way, is blue and white, and Susan, his companion, is green. So yes, you can helm the deck out of the box with this classic pair if you want to. Up next is a character so many people have been asking me about. It's K9. Yes, of course there was going to be a K9 card in the set. Trusty and a Doctor's best friend. But it's not all just characters. Here's a very iconic moment from the 5th Doctor's regeneration scene where he's hearing echoes from his past companions. This card is called Time Lord Regeneration. Of course, we wanted to try and get some classic Doctor sound bites into the set. Here's this next piece, which features the 3rd Doctor and is just stunning. It's called Reverse the Polarity. So yes, you too can reverse the polarity of the neutron flow to try and save the day. Next is a piece of art which gives me feelings every time. It's Adric, a companion the Doctor couldn't save. In this famous moment from Earthshock, he's trying to reroute a spaceship in the nick of time, but the control system gets hit by a Cyberman, and this art piece catches him just as he realizes he will never know if he's right. Oof, still gets me. Okay, and finally for this deck, one thing we did that I absolutely love was give each Doctor and some villains a saga card that tells the story of an episode of Doctor Who. They get these incredible art pieces, and there's been a lot of speculation over which episodes for which Doctors. Well, I want to show you some new ones today and reveal what they're going to be. So here's the 4th Doctor saga, City of Death. In this serial, among many other zany events, the Doctor has to deal with the fate of 6 fake Mona Lisas, and here the art plays with that. I absolutely adore this piece. Some of the saga pieces are more abstract while some are more literal, but none of them make me laugh nearly as much as this one. It's a great bit of Doctor Who whimsy. Okay, so that's what I've got for the classic deck. Lots of cool stuff, right? Well, we're just getting started. I imagine some of you, okay, a lot of you, are fans of the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctors. Well, let me tell you all about the timey-wimey deck, my favorite deck theme of the 4, and it's a real doozy. So first of all, it's headed up by the 10th Doctor, who is blue-red, and Rose Tyler, who is mono-white. Now, these seasons have a lot of time travel shenanigans, from the whole River Song storyline to literally making everything happen all at once. We see how wibbly-wobbly time really is. In fact, there are few words more resonant to a Doctor Who fan than the word time. It's core to the show, so I'm happy to say this is a theme we have never done before in a Commander deck, or really on a Legend anywhere. Are you ready? It's time counters. Suspend, vanishing, permanents that naturally accrue time counters. All those are here in this deck. Big looming threats hang suspended over the course of history while you're racing against time as things on the board vanish away. Nothing really feels more Doctor Who than this. And of course, there's one man for the job. Are you ready to see the 10th Doctor's card and the brand new mechanic for the deck? Let's take a look at the 10th Doctor. There's a lot to take in here, so let's go little by little. It's 5 mana for a 3/5 Time Lord Doctor, which yes, both new creature types. Time Lord, by the way, is all one type, Magic's first ever 2-word type. The first ability rewards you when you Alonzi into the fray, attacking with any of your creatures, not just him. Notably, this works immediately, so if you play the 10th Doctor and can attack that turn, you'll get the ability right away. It will then suspend a random card from your deck with 3 time counters, so you'll get to play it for free in 3 turns. And then there's that second ability, which lets you time travel. This is a brand new mechanic. Here's how it works. Whenever you time travel, you get to pull a time counter off all your suspended cards and put a time counter on all your cards on the battlefield with time counters. This lets your suspended cards show up sooner and your vanishing cards stick around a bit longer. Plus, there are some other cards that just accumulate time counters and improve. It's truly some wibbly wobbly timey-wimey gameplay. There's nothing quite like this deck theme. And keep in mind, you'll also get to play a Doctor's Companion, such as Rose Tyler, alongside the 10th Doctor. So you'll have 2 commanders, including 1 creature that costs less, and will be ready to attack when the 10th Doctor shows up. We've seen how sneakily strong partner commanders have been in the past because you get 2 cards in the command zone, and these are no exception. You'll see what Rose does next week. You'll also have to wait to see some of the new Suspend, Vanishing, and other cards that use time counters. But it really is a special deck, not like anything we've done before. Okay, there's a brand new card. How about another brand new plane? All right, well, just remember, if this one breaks your heart, that you're the one that wanted to see previews. Here's Bad Wolf Bay. On this plane, a creature flickers in and out of existence every turn, until eventually, when chaos ensues, it fades out forever and you leave it behind. Oof, I feel that one. Sorry, Rose. Of course, it's not all heartbreak. There's a lot of lighthearted cards too. Here's one thing we knew we had to do from the very beginning. It's the food token for this deck. That's fish fingers and custard. The 11th Doctor would certainly approve. Though having tried the dish myself, I cannot. Now, how about some more artwork of what you can expect? First up, here's Rose Tyler. You'll be seeing her card next week in Barcelona, but for now, you can see what her art is going to look like in the set. Let's move on next to a character who has been asked about a lot on social media, and don't worry, he's here, the War Doctor. I love this piece taken from the Day of the Doctor, as he's contemplating using the moment and the horror that comes with doing so. His card is pretty wild, and I'm excited for you to all see it. Speaking of wild characters, here's another favorite, the face of Bo, reminding us all that you are not alone. He might just look like a head in a jar, but he's quite powerful, and I think you're going to like playing with the card. I'm sorry in advance for breaking your heart again, but here's an amazing and powerful piece of Wilfred Mott and the 10th Doctor. This card is called Four Knocks and shows the moment the 10th Doctor sacrifices himself to save Wilf. I've rewatched this scene probably half a dozen times while working on the set, and this exact moment gets me every time. Next up, a moment that may also make you tear up, but hopefully in happiness. One of my favorite art pieces in the whole set from a real fan favorite episode. This card is called Ecstatic Beauty and taken from Vincent and the Doctor with Vincent van Gogh. The art style of this piece matches beautifully, absolutely incredible. And finally, how about one more saga piece? Let me show you the 11th Doctor's saga. There were a lot of really good options for the 11th Doctor, but nothing captures him quite as well to me as his first episode, where he really becomes the Doctor. It's time for the 11th hour. A crashed TARDIS, young Amy, Prisoner Zero, a crack in the wall. Okay, now I just want to go watch the episode. I hope you're excited for the timey-wimey deck now. It's pretty wild. Okay, still two more to look at. Let's hear it for the next deck, the blue, red, and green Paradox Power. This deck is helmed by the 13th Doctor, who is blue-green, and Yasmin Khan, who is mono-red. Now, this deck has another pretty new and novel theme, and a new ability. One thing about being the Doctor is that you're always looking for ingenious solutions, and this deck asks you to do just that. Paradox is a new ability word that gives you bonuses for casting spells not from your hand, and it looks something like this. Wait, how are you going to do that? Well, that's where you, like the Doctor, need to get very, very clever. Flashback, Cascade, Retrace, Escape, all those and more you can find in this deck. You'll find Paradox most often on permanents, but some spells have it too, rewarding you for the number of cards you've paradoxed this turn. You'll have to wait until next week to see any Paradox cards, but I still have some fun sneak peeks from this deck for you. So every deck contains 10 new Plane Chase cards, but who's saying they're all planes? Every deck also gets one Phenomenon card as one of those planes. Here's one featuring Clara, Fixed Point in Time. Sometimes you can get out of a plane without its chaos effect happening, but when you go to Fixed Point in Time, it pretty much ensures that there's no getting away from that effect happen. Time cannot be rewritten, and you're going to have to face the Raven whether you want to or not. Or perhaps you'll uncover a bit of your own past, like on this clue token with the 13th Doctor. For tokens as prevalent as food, treasure, and clues, each deck gets its own art for the token if that a token appears in the deck. So, for example, the classic deck has a different clue token. Pretty cool. Now, let's take a look at some more art of what to expect. First up, here's Yasmin Khan, the 13th Doctor's trusty companion, in action. Next, it's time for the 12th Doctor, with one of my favorite scenes of his whole run. Rocking out on a tank, yeah, this was a great moment for 12. So glad we got it on a card. Speaking of great moments for 12, here's a card from one particularly memorable episode, Mummy on the Orient Express. Trapped on a train, this monster appears to just one person and kills them in 66 seconds. The Doctor has to solve the string of murders before his own time is up. This card is called the Foretold Soldier. Up next is a great piece from a card called Decaying Time Loop. If you don't know this one, it's from a pretty recent episode, Eve of the Daleks. In the episode, there's a time loop that gets 1 minute shorter every iteration, and this card represents that. Hey, it's me. No, not me. Me. This card, called Me the Immortal, was from a memorable season-long story from the 12th Doctor's run. I'll give you a hint, her card has a lot of trouble staying dead. And then, how about the saga? Well, here's the art of one for the 13th Doctor, The Flux. Rather than focus on a specific episode, this one saga captures the events of the recent 6-part arc called The Flux. Okay, so that's Paradox Power. That leaves just one deck left, and hopefully you're ready to hear all about the villains. In Masters of Evil, you have all manner of the Doctor's villains at your disposal. And the villains, they don't need a Doctor's companion, they can all take care of themselves. So leading the deck is Davros, who is blue, red, and black, and there are several other legends in the deck which can command it as well. The deck's theme is, well, to be the villain, and it executes that in mechanics by putting your opponent into a tough spot with a new ability called Villainous Choice. I'll show you a card with this next week, but this ability basically makes an opponent, or sometimes all of your opponents, pick between two different bad things happening. It really captures that choose between two horrible outcomes that dastardly villains always seem so excited to make you do. This leads to a theme of group slug style gameplay, where you want to hit all of your opponents. It has a healthy dose of mechanics that do that, such as Myriad, to make sure you're torturing all your opponents equally, just like a villain would have it. Additionally, there's a bit of an artifact creature subtheme as well. Daleks, Cybermen, and plenty of other baddies are artifacts too, so you'll find some of that hiding in this deck. And speaking of Daleks, well, who's ready to exterminate? Check out this preview card. Simple, clean, efficient, just like a Dalek. You kill off a creature and add a little insult to injury. And for every Dalek you control, you can replicate it again. You can expect some Daleks in this product, of course, but also don't sleep on this one, Changeling Commander deck players. What does a Dalek look like exactly though? Well, here's one of them. Check out this Dalek token. Daleks are quite literally menacing here. A number of cards, including Davros himself, make this 3/3 Dalek token. So yes, you'll be able to command your own Dalek squadron. And if all goes well, you'll put the various doctors into their tomb. Okay, that's not a very subtle transition, but let me show you the doctor's tomb. On Trenzalore, the Doctor's Tomb is a dangerous place to go. As creatures die, you take damage. But then, when chaos happens, you can go into the time stream itself and rewrite history by redistributing life totals. Give yourself the highest and your biggest enemy the lowest. Truly villainous. Now, let's see the rogues gallery of some of who you can expect to show up here. Starting with Missy. Missy is blue, black, red, and can command the deck as well, as a great alternative commander to Davros. But she's not the only of her kind here. Several other masters are represented in the set, including John Sim's depiction. Here's the master multiplied, trying to turn everybody in the world into a copy of himself. Ah, what a great plan. These are some characters from the newer series of the show, but keep in mind the villains deck encompasses the entire run of Doctor Who, like the Valeyard. If you aren't familiar with this character from the 6th Doctor's run, he puts the 6th Doctor on trial for crimes, though the evidence seems to be tampered with somehow. A quite memorable character. Don't blink for the next one, it's a weeping angel. Of course they're here. Now, I've heard that a picture of an angel becomes an angel, so let's move along. 2. The Vashta Narada. Count the Shadows. This creature will have your opponent asking who turned out the lights. Now, each of the Doctors has a saga. True, but we weren't going to leave the villains out of the fun. There are 4 sagas in the villains deck as well. And here's the art for Death in Heaven. This story shows Missy teaming up with the Cybermen and covers 2 pretty iconic villains in one story. And man, I love that art. And there you have it, the 4 decks of Doctor Who Commander. So, what do you all think? Big hats off to the incredible team who made it happen. It truly was the best people in the world to have it inside this TARDIS. And the fun isn't kept to just the decks either. You might have also heard there are collector boosters, and there's been a big question. What exactly is in there? Well, it's a way to get all the cards from the decks in cool treatments. There's nothing mechanically unique, but for example, there are foils and a special frame. I'm not going to get into all the details of what you'll find inside today, but you know what shape Magic cards have? A rectangle. And wait a second, the TARDIS, that's a big box. Check this out. It's the 10th Doctor, but in a special frame. A select grouping of cards from this set appear in this special treatment only in collector boosters. It puts the characters in this frame inspired by the TARDIS. The art also has a bit more of a comic book style, and some of the artists are even huge fan artists of Doctor Who. In something that makes me chuckle, we even put the TARDIS in this frame too. You'll find both these and several other cards in this style in collector boosters. You'll hear more about these next week. One other place you can find some cool Doctor Who cards is Secret Lair. Coming this October, you'll see some special Doctor Who Secret Lairs as well, featuring reprints from Magic's history. And as a matter of fact, here's a little bit of an art teaser for you. Daleks in London, now there's some iconic imagery. Pretty cool, right? Let the speculation as to what reprint card it is begin. If you want to make sure you know when these hit, you can go sign up for the email list on magicsecretlair.com to be the first to know. Now, I have one more thing to say before I go. I want to say it's been fantastic, simply fantastic. You might have been wondering about other time travel cards. Well, let me introduce you to our first saga, The Parting of the Ways, which is the 9th Doctor's saga. Here's the card. This episode has a lot hanging in the balance. In fact, it's the second half of a two-parter. So the first thing you do is to spend a bunch of plot moments off the top of your library. They'll resolve later. Then, if you remember the episode, the Doctor sends Rose Tyler back in time to save her, until she stares into the heart of the TARDIS, becoming the bad wolf, and ends up going forward in time to appear with the Doctor. So naturally, you time travel twice. And then, as the bad wolf, she destroys the Daleks and their ships and saves everybody. What a moment. And to follow with the card mechanics here, you destroy a bunch of artifacts yourself. Pretty cool, right? Well, there's 18 more sagas and a ton more cards where this came from. All right, so now seeing all this, which deck are you most excited for? Let me know in the comments down below. I don't want to go, but that's all I have for you today. I'll talk with you again soon. And until then, enjoy your adventures out there in time and space. You got this. Is that there's always a chance to respond to a spell or ability. I cast Lightning Bolt, you cast Giant Growth. I tap a Prodigal Sorcerer to kill your Sakura Tribe Elder, you can respond by sacrificing it for a land. You make the decision to do something, and then the other player can make a decision to respond. But Throwing Knife takes that moment out of the equation.